Stick drift is not always this obvious. Can you even notice it right here? No matter what's causing it, today we are going to fix it. To replace the joysticks, we're going to need some tools and equipment. We're going to need a Phillips 00 screwdriver, a soldering iron, and a hot air gun, some rosin paste flux, a fume extractor, a desoldering pump, some isopropyl alcohol, 90% or higher, a spudger, some solder, and some capped on tape. The links to all of these will be below. Feel free to pause the video if needed. First, you want to start by removing the cover. You can use your fingernails or you can use a spudger. Take the spudger, and then you want to go ahead and pop out the LB and the RB buttons. Once you got those out, you'll notice there are 4 screws that you can now see. All 4 of these screws will need to come out. Take your Phillips 00 bit screwdriver. I'm using this electric one, quite handy. Under the controller, you'll see 2 clips. You can use your fingers to unclip those and begin prying the controller apart. Once both those clips are unlatched, the controller should pull apart with ease. And now you should be able to see the battery. Go ahead and remove the battery. Once the battery is out, you'll see a small screw under it. You can remove that screw, and that'll free this plate underneath here. But first you'll want to go find this little ribbon cable that's connected to it. Remove the ribbon cable. I like to leave it here so it don't get lost. Then you can pull that plate out. And now you're gonna see here on the controller some ribbon cables. These 4 here, they will all need to come out. I like to use my fingers. If you can carefully use a pair of tweezers, that also works for some people. Either way, be very careful. If you tear one of these cables, it will need to be replaced. Grab a soldering iron and some tweezers, and we can begin removing the wires for the vibrating motors. You'll want to just carefully grab the wire with the tweezers, and then you'll lay the soldering iron at the point of contact. You'll see the solder start to loosen up, and you can just pull the wire right out of it. And once all the wires are removed, the board should come right out. If you need to rewind the video, you will want to remember what order those wires were laid down. Once you got your caps off, you'll see we have original joystick modules here. You can tell because they're blue. And on the other side here, this is where most of the work will be happening. We're going to clamp the board up. Once the board is secured, we can optionally add on some capped on tape. Not everybody does this, but it can prevent you from burning some vital parts of the board, so it can be useful. Now, I like to start with adding some of my own lead solder on top of the solder that it comes with. The company solder doesn't have lead in it, so it can be a little stubborn when it comes to loosening up and melting. I find with adding my own, it speeds up the time with the hot air gun quite a bit. It's worth doing. I like to do both sides in one go, so I'm not going back and forth. And then you want to grab your hot air gun. You want to make sure that it is always moving like this, so you don't burn a part of your board. I like 750 degrees for the hot air gun. And once that solder begins to loosen, you want to reach under with the tweezers, grab the joystick like so, and it should just pop right out. And do that for both sides. And now you can grab your desoldering pump and you'll want to take your hot air gun in one hand. Keep that moving still so we don't burn the board. And once the solder is heated up, you'll take the tip of that desoldering pump and you'll align it with the hole for the pin. And when you hit the button on the pump, it'll suck the solder out so that we have these clean pinholes here. These are what we'll be needing to fit through there, so you'll want to make sure they're completely clear. And you'll want to make sure that the module sits flush to the board. You want to make sure it's not crooked. And right now is a good time to inspect the module for any damage. Things can happen in shipping, better to know now before it's soldered in. So now lightly heat the board, put some flux on it. I like to heat it up a little to get it to spread more even. Once the flux is on there, you're going to want to grab your soldering iron and very carefully, you're just going to want to touch your solder to the base of the pin while you hold your iron on it. The iron will heat the pin up, and then when you lay your solder down at the base of it, it'll fill the hole around it. The flux is going to help it melt evenly so that it doesn't run over and connect the pins together. If you are replacing both joysticks, the process is the same for both. I usually don't like to have one Hall effect joystick and one analog, so I'll usually go ahead and replace both of them. Aftercare of the board is important. Once both the joysticks are installed, you'll want to get some isopropyl alcohol, and you'll want to start cleaning the rosin paste flux off of the board. You'll want to make sure that you get all of the flux off. Leftover flux can cause some electrical issues if it gets onto the wrong parts of the board. And don't be dirty, clean your workstation up. Make sure there's no lead laying around, and most importantly, don't do this. It is nothing worse than putting the whole controller back together and you forgot to put the joystick caps back on. So do that on this part here before you slide the motherboard back in. Other than that, we just have to reassemble the board. I like to take a little bit of solder and kind of just refill what burnt off for them wires. Sometimes there's not enough on there to get them to stick back down. And now we're just going to reattach the wires. They go from bottom to top, red, black, green, yellow. And that is the same on both sides. Once you get all of those wires reconnected, you want to reattach those 4 ribbon cables. The bottom one is for the mic, the 2 on the sides are for your adaptive triggers, and the one on the top is going to be for your touchpad. So you'll want to make sure all those are plugged in. If one of those units is malfunctioning after the reassembly, you can probably guess one of those ribbon cables isn't seated all the way. Take the bracket that holds the battery, lay that back in the controller, and make sure that ribbon cable is still attached to it. After that ribbon cable is plugged in, you want to secure this screw here in the middle of the bracket. Once the bracket is secured, you can plug back in your battery, set it in there, and then you can reconnect your shells. Make sure the shells completely reconnect, no spacing. That can mean something didn't get seated properly and is blocking the inside of the controller. And then all you'll have to do is connect them 4 screws back in, the 2 under the buttons and the 2 at the bottom. Once all 4 of those screws are back in place, you can add on your frame here. And then all that's left to do is to put in your LB and RB buttons. And that's how you change the joysticks out on a PlayStation 5 controller. If you found this video helpful, please leave a like and subscribe on the channel. And if you want a controller that stands out from the rest, we offer custom modifications on our website below, as well as all of the repairs that you'll see in these videos. Feel free to check us out, and have a beautiful day.